Now I'd like to introduce Chip. First of all, we're going to have to figure out what happened to the last name. That's really an important part of the equation here, Chip. Um, but personally speaking, as part of our Reopening Boulder series, hoping that that is going to continue, um, this was a speaker that I was really interested in hearing, partly because over the last 18 months, I've been using Downtown Boulder and the weekly emails as part of my personal knowledge base for what's happening in the community, what's happening downtown with our businesses and our restaurants. So I'd like to introduce Chip now. He is the CEO of the Downtown Boulder Partnership, which is an organization dedicated to the economic, historical, and cultural aspects of our downtown community, keeping in mind that all three are important. He served as the executive director for the Downtown Association of Santa Cruz for more than a decade. He spent 20 years in downtown district management, and he is a strong advocate for the arts and culture with a background in production, theater, and performance. Chip, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for being our speaker today.
Thank you very much, Chad. Thank you for that very nice introduction. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here because I do have some visuals because you don't want to look at me the whole time. So thank you for that. I will say all of that you said is pretty much true. I will add that I started in this role the same day that the famous Laurie Preston started at the Museum of Boulder. We started on the same day in August of 2019, and which was, by my calculations, about 20 years ago. It's been a really interesting and exciting couple of years coming up on our 2-year anniversary, right, Laurie? It's been fun. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about the Downtown Boulder Partnership, and I tried to cram a lot into this, so I'm going to talk a little fast so we can leave time for questions to really dive into what you're interested in hearing about. Downtown Boulder Partnership is really 3 organizations that have different but complementary roles. The partnership is our business advocacy organization. We represent the businesses in the downtown, and we provide a lot of member services. That's everything from training around anything from customer service, social media trainings, identifying counterfeit money, and we have member events. We really try to build a lot of community in the downtown district. I'll talk a little about how that changed last year and some of the impacts that we had in terms of what we do for our business members. But generally, the partnership is an advocacy organization. We also run a business improvement district. The business improvement district, or the BID, is funded through property tax of the commercial property in the downtown. And the BID really oversees our marketing program. We do a lot of district marketing, local, working very closely with the Conference of Visitors Council, who does more regional and national and even international. So we have a very close relationship with them in the work they do in marketing, but we do a lot of work. We manage the website at boulderdowntown.com, and also the emails Chad referred to, really trying to do a lot of communication. And then we're also engaged with Clean, Safe, and Welcoming. The Pearl Street Mall, the 4 bricks of the mall, is a city park. So the Parks and Recreations Department does a tremendous job of maintaining and all the beautiful flowers. That's all the city's parks program. But our team works very closely with the Parks Department, and also on the larger downtown outside of the Pearl Street Mall, we do a lot of we're in charge of graffiti abatement. We're in charge of a lot of the trash removal and anything we can do to make downtown clean and safe. And again, on the business improvement district side, I'll talk about some of the new things we're doing there, in part as a result of the pandemic. And then we have a nonprofit 501c3 organization we call Downtown Boulder Community Initiatives. DBCI puts on our events. We have a lot of free community events throughout the year. We're in the middle of our Bands in the Bricks program. I'll talk a little more about that. We do a little bit of public art. We have a really exciting alley gallery programs. If you ever find yourself walking around in the alleys downtown, there's some Easter eggs down there to be found in the way of local artists we've put their art on doors and alleys. And then the nonprofit is also really now we're looking at downtown of the future, and what does the downtown look like? We've been kind of the gold standard of downtowns in Boulder for coming up on 45 years. Next year is the anniversary of the mall, and so what's the next chapter looks like, and how do we maintain our reputation? So that's the really quick overview of who we are as an organization. It's a little map just to show that when we talk about downtown, the red zone is the business improvement district, and then the greater areas, sort of what we consider our downtown and the services we provide within that zone. So I'll talk about reopening as is the theme of today. And we'll start back with when we shut down downtown and kind of what we did. Partnerships, if I have one word for 2020, it was the year of partnerships. We, as an organization, we're nowhere without our partners, and we have really strong partners in the city of Boulder, particularly the Community Vitality Department, but really every department in the city. We work really closely with Parks and Recs, with the police department, with planning. So at the beginning of the pandemic, the Boulder Chamber and the Downtown Boulder Partnership and the City Community Vitality and a number of other groups, including the Small Business Development Center, the Latino Chamber, Community Foundation, quickly formed the what we refer to now as the Alliance, which was the Boulder Business Response and Recovery and Alliance. We all knew we had a lot of work to do, and we're going to be much better off if we can do it together and really identify the where we can support each other and where there's overlaps, we can be efficiencies. So right away, we started meeting weekly and really pooling our resources and figuring out what we need to do. Out of that came a number of programs like the outdoor dining program that was an emergency response that we got ramped up really quickly. I believe we were the first city in the state to get a program on the books that businesses were able to expand out into parking spaces and out into the street. We also worked very closely on a curbside pickup program where we were able to, for some of our retail spots, take out some parking spaces that people could come in for curbside. We did a subsidized meal delivery program with a local delivery service, Nosh, which was starting out where the city was able to use some federal funds to subsidize meal delivery service. So we were basically paying the fees for people who wanted to order delivery. We did a matching gift card funds for a while around the holidays last year. And then we did a lot of support directly to our businesses, working very closely with the Chamber and the SBDC. We had weekly industry-specific webinars. The rules were changing every day, so we really ramped into communicating with our businesses. It was confusing. The state and the county and everybody was saying different things, so we really had to work towards helping the businesses understand what was going on. And similarly, not only with the safety orders, but the funding. Where's the PPP? How is the PPP working? Everything rolled out really quickly. So we did our best to be a communication hub with our partners on all of that. Additionally, in the downtown, you may remember seeing a lot of signs downtown. We got up pretty quick, asking people to wear a mask and get signs out to our businesses, really creating that consistent communication about safety, and that we also had some hand sanitizer stations built that we distributed around downtown. We bought some heaters for the outdoor restaurants to help subsidize some of the cost of that. And then we started doing a number of virtual events. We wanted to stay engaged with our community, and everything that we do as downtown management is try to bring people downtown, and we're in this position where the one thing we weren't supposed to be doing was bringing people downtown, but we really wanted to stay connected with people. So we turned our Tulip and Elf Festival into a virtual festival. We put together a lot of scavenger hunts geared both towards families and older kids and various things just to keep people engaged. One of my favorite things in 2020 was the Bands Above the Bricks, our very popular Bands on the Bricks. We couldn't not do that. We had to do it somewhere. So Laurie at the museum said, I've got a rooftop. So we streamed live concerts, and we had 4 concerts on the beautiful rooftop. It was hard to go back to the Bricks, as much fun as that was. That rooftop's so beautiful. And then we just did everything we could to just stay engaged with the community. And then as we kind of starting moving into 2021, to steal the line from the president, we just wanted to figure out how we could build back better. We knew we'd be opening up and what could we do differently. So I'm going to highlight just a few things that we've been doing in that regard. We launched a community advisory board, a downtown ambassador program. I'll talk about all these. We started bringing our events back, but kind of really in a more thoughtful way about what events we're bringing back and why do we do events and who are they for. So we've had some really exciting conversations, and we're looking forward to some really fun stuff coming up for 2022. And then we also started talking about infrastructure opportunities, which I'll talk about. And of course, I know we all want to talk about outdoor dining and the future of that. So I'll just talk really quickly. Our community advisory board was something we started a year ago, and we had a pretty broad outreach, and we really wanted to find people who weren't engaged in downtown and communities who weren't engaged in our downtown and how we could expand downtown. So we got together. It ended up being 11 really amazing community members, very diverse representation. And we basically said, how do we make downtown more inclusive? How do we make it more relevant to the communities who aren't here? So we've had some really, it's been really hard work. It's been challenging work to kind of work in that place, but we also know we have to do it. We want to make sure downtown is welcoming for everybody. So we've had some great successes. We're really working on our events and how to make our events more inclusive and welcoming. The built environment downtown, how do people feel welcome or feel a sense of belonging in downtown? Who does, who doesn't? And what can we do as an organization, as a community, to make sure everybody feels welcome? And then also looking at our organization and how we can be more representative. And then I think at the end of the year, among many things the Community Advisory Board is doing, they'll be putting together a list of recommendations for us, for members of the business community, just in terms of understanding things that we don't necessarily understand in our perspective. The other thing we launched this year, we just launched a month ago, is our Downtown Ambassador Program. I'm personally very excited about this program. It's meeting a lot of needs we've had in the community, and really looking at how do we have more of a welcoming presence in the downtown? How do we extend the welcoming presence that exists? So we've hired a crew of fantastic ambassadors. I'm really in this moment of staffing crisis that we're having. I feel so fortunate we were able to find a really great group of people who are downtown and spending every day downtown. You'll identify them in their very handsome blue uniforms down there. And they're engaging with visitors, helping people find directions, answering questions, providing a lot of support to businesses, and really having just a constant friendly presence downtown. A lot of what we're able to do is, businesses who are closing late need an escort to their car. We're down here, we can help with that. Really keeping eyes and ears on the street, working very closely with our enforcement team downtown, and just building community relationships down here and having a presence. So if you see our team downtown, say hi. I know they like to talk, so they'll talk to you. Did I skip one? This just the last month we launched the program in July 1st. We're also working in the civic area and up on University Hill. We have a limited crew. So this slide just gives you a little sense of what we're doing. In the last month, we've talked to a little over 2,000 visitors and just had interactions with folks downtown and on University Hill, 3,000, including all the districts, doing a lot of graffiti removal and cleanups and all sorts of stuff. So really, whatever they can do to make downtown more welcoming and inviting and friendly and clean. So that's a new program. Talked about infrastructure opportunities. Very excited about next year's the 45th anniversary of the Pearl Street Mall. And as we're approaching the 50th, what are the things we want to do to refresh them all? What can we do? We had a great group kind of looking at things. One of the big things we're looking at is our visitor information center in the public restroom that were built many, many years ago and are in need of a refresh for a number of reasons, to have a restroom that's designed a little more welcoming and less opportune for some of the activities we're seeing in there, and more opportune for we'll say using the restroom. So that's part of that is a design issue. So we're excited about the opportunity of having, potentially a staffed restroom visitor center. So to deal with some of the maintenance issues and challenges we're seeing there. We're also really excited about the East End and what are the possibilities for some streetscape reimagining, bringing more shade, more pedestrian friendly environment on the East End. And then, of course, the West End has been through a whole lot of transformation in the last couple of years. So looking at, what does that look like moving forward? And then civic area connection. How do we better connect downtown in the civic area, and what are the infrastructure opportunities there? So it is looking very much like there will be our infrastructure tax, which is the community culture and safety tax, which is expiring this year. It's looking very likely that that will be on the ballot coming up. So we're really excited about the possibility of using some of those funds for some of the infrastructures to the public realm in the downtown that support the community. And then finally, the conversation we've been having for 2 years now is outdoor dining. We've had a tremendous opportunity with the emergency of restaurants losing capacity, and the city worked very quickly, and we worked very quickly with the city and our other partners to provide some extended space. We love it. Everybody loves it. It's a great program. People want to see it continued, and there are a lot of things to consider. So we're working very closely with the city to kind of look at what are the opportunities, what are the challenges we have to overcome. As I mentioned, this was in response to an emergency. And so there were a lot of things we did quickly that now moving in post-pandemic, as it's not an emergency, how do we do it really well? What are the opportunities? What's the cost analysis? How do we get the private use of the public right away? How do we make that equitable and make sense? We didn't really do community outreach. We're starting to do community outreach. So far, we're hearing that it's a very popular program and people want to see some version of it continued, whether it's seasonal or year-round. A lot of questions, but currently the emergency orders are scheduled to end at the end of October, and we're working closely with the city to really determine what's next. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure there'll be questions about that, but there's lots to analyze about that to really make sure we get a really good program in the future. So now we are back. We have been doing events. We've now had 2 of our bands on the bricks. We normally do 10 in the summer. We have 4 scheduled for this summer. We just had this week the one and only Hazel Miller came down and performed, and we had a great turnout. Hazel Miller has performed every Bands on the Bricks since we started it 25 years ago. So this is the 25th anniversary of Bands on the Bricks, and Hazel put on a fantastic show. We have 2 more Wednesday nights. Next week we have a Celeste and the Fafa family, which is a local reggae band we're looking forward to. And then we have Salsa night with Que Mundo Salsa the following week. So I invite you to all come down and celebrate. But it really, being down there on Wednesday and just the whole community came out and was having a good time. It really feels like downtown's back. And not only does it feel, we're seeing it in the numbers. So this graph here is we keep track of pedestrian impressions. So we can tell you who's downtown, how many people, and you can see the company we worked with for a long time went out of business in the end of 2019. So that flat line in 2020, the first half of 2020 is when we didn't have pedestrian counters. But what's interesting, if you compare the blue line of 2019 and the brownish yellow line of 2021, you can see right around April, we kind of crossed over, and we have more people coming downtown than we did in 2019. Which is encouraging. I think we're getting more local, more regional travel. This gives a little breakdown of the pedestrian counts. You can see June and July, the numbers here, are up a bit from 2 years ago. And particularly you see that the increase on the weekends. So we're seeing people come down to play. There's still some concern about office use and when office use is coming back. But I'll be honest, no one's panicking yet. People are coming back to the office. I anticipate when school starts again and you take your kids to school and drop them off, you're going to start wondering where you're going to go. So I think we'll see some people starting to return. It's going to be slow. And that's the area I think that is going to be the longest to recover is people using, we have a lot of people come work downtown and we miss them, but we think they're coming back. Little bit of information from our friends at the CVB, the Conference of Visitors Council, in terms of hotel occupancy. We're creeping back up. We still got a ways to go in terms of tourism. I think we're seeing a lot of day trips, regional day trips, people coming here for the weekend and other folks, but it is creeping back up, and we anticipate this fall is going to be big. There's a lot we don't know right now. Everything's very scary with the Delta variant and other things, and we're watching other states, but we're optimistic in terms of travel. And then there's a lot of caveats that come with this slide, but this is sales tax revenue. We're very slow to get this data, so this is through May of this year, and you can see the year over year from the end of May 2021, we're back. The sales taxes, and like I said, there are a lot of caveats. This information isn't as straightforward as this, but it's really optimistic. It's really encouraging to see where we are in terms of sales tax revenue, and I think it's just going up. So that's a very quick overview of downtown, where we've been, where we're going. I did want to leave time to answer questions. And so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen so I can look at you. And
very good. Well, very good. Well, thank you, Chip. And we do have some questions for everyone who has a question, but you haven't put it down in the chat yet. Now is the time to do it. So Chip, we're going to go to the first one, which will be Bill Anderson. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Chip. Thanks for coming to speak with us. Quick question for you. How does the organization get its funding, and what is its annual budget?
It's a great question. So the bulk of our money comes from a special assessment of property tax. So the commercial property in downtown is taxed. That makes up about $1.4 million of revenue to the organization, and that's the business improvement district. We have a number of other funding sources that add to that, including our membership program that businesses pay into, and we have a contract with the city of Boulder for providing baseline services. So the work we do in the downtown in terms of trash removal and various other things, we have a contract with that. The ambassador program that we just funded, the city is funding about 2/3 of that program. And that's, we're working in the downtown and the University Hill. So all told, our budget is around $2 million. About around $2 million annual. But the bulk of it does come from property tax in the district.
Great. Thank you, Chip. And the next question is going to be from President Chad Stam. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. And you touched on this a minute ago with outdoor dining, but I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. What are the expectations? Who is actually the one responsible for making that decision? And where do you guys fall in terms of extending it? Is it going to be more permanent? What are you sort of lobbying for along those lines?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, we have seen a lot of popularity for the outdoor dining. And as I mentioned, it was all kind of put together in an emergency. So the city has graciously given the public right away to businesses to be able to do that. And we know that that's not going to continue after the emergency orders. So the expectation is we will continue it some version. If I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you a little more about what that will look like. It's very possible that it is a seasonal program. One of the really big challenges is, there's a lot of expense and safety concerns about having outdoor dining in the streets during the winter. We spent a lot of the city and the businesses and us spent a lot of resources this winter getting barricades up, which were necessary for weather. conditions, frankly, and not necessarily when there's no. So there's some trade-offs there in terms of what the traffic impacts and the safety impacts of the on-street dining. There's actually three kind of distinct programs that we're working with. There's the street closure on the west end, and also Event Street up on University Hill. We closed the streets for outdoor dining. And then there's what we call the parklets, or the streeteries, where businesses like Foolish Craig's and Tiaco and other businesses around the city have taken over parking spaces. And then the third is actually on the bricks on the Pearl Street Mall. A number of the businesses, you'll see Japango and Hoppe and West Flanders, and many of the businesses have extended out beyond the cafe extension that they already had that is leased from the city, just to expand. So a lot of the questions we have to answer are, how do we do each of those elements individually but equitably, and have the best impact for the businesses, but also the community, and use the public right away. I think the seasonality is a big question. There's more expenses to doing it seasonality in some ways, but there's a lot of concerns about people in the streets in the winter, and what is the cost of it and who bears that cost. So there's a number, we didn't really do a whole lot of community outreach. We're doing that now. We didn't address ADA issues initially. We're doing that now. So we're in the process of putting together, the Downtown Boulder Partnership is putting together a proposal, working very closely with the city to move forward. My guess is we'll probably have a seasonal program next year. But ultimately, City Council has a lot to say about it, but I do expect they will listen to the staff concerns that are real in terms of, safety first and foremost. And then all these pesky issues like traffic concerns and neighbors, and, so.
Okay, great. Thank you. And before we go on to the next question, I actually have a question. Now, is it true, Chip, that you don't have a last name because you're in the Witness Protection Program? Is that true?
I plead the fifth.
Just wondering what you did. And if you got a good story for us about what you did to get to the Witness Protection Program.
I do. That'll be for the next presentation.
Okay. Got well, it's on the DL, so you can tell us, and so we'll keep it quiet.
Perfect.
Next question is Bob Stunkel. Go ahead, Bob.
You give us such a comprehensive view of the downtown and surely of the mall, and our years in Boulder coincide with the mall. An ongoing conversation is always the interaction of local and national and international businesses. Would you please comment, Chip, on the ongoing conversations and projections?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before the pandemic, just before the pandemic, 87% of our retail and 94% of our restaurant were locally owned, which is kind of unheard of for a downtown this size. Since the pandemic, we've seen a lot. We had more businesses open than closed in the last year. Many of those are investment from national, regional. We're seeing a lot of outdoor gear companies. I don't think there's any left who aren't here in Boulder now. And which I'll say is both exciting and it's a great sign that there is so much investment and confidence in Boulder. It also is concerning in terms of what it does for that mix. But at the same time, I will say, if you walk around the east end of downtown, there's some amazing local independent stores. We've got a new bodega opened up recently. There's some, that if you haven't been down there a while, there's an incredible furniture store, a local furniture maker who does all locally sourced wood products is in what was the Crossroads building. There's a plant store, Terracotta, up on there. So there's all these really great young local independents opening up at the same time as we're seeing investment from Black Diamond and CO and all these national chains. So, I think that mix is still really good. I think we're way ahead of most downtowns in terms of the amount of local independence. And, as we see the investment from the nationals, the rents aren't going to come down. So it does create an environment that's harder for local independents to do. So to start up businesses here, it's really hard to start up a business without a lot of capital. So and it's more and more so all the time. So, you know, I know that's something we work with the city closely and the small business development centers. How do we support local independence? How do we support minority owned? How do we support women owned business? How do we keep a diversity of, you know, the impacts to a downtown of having local ownership is so important. And, you know, and we want those brands too, you know, but we want a good balance. And I think we still have a little bit of wiggle room there, but, you know, I'm a generally optimistic person, but seeing the investment we've had both from locals and nationals has been really, really hopeful. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Just to comment on that important area.
Yeah. You know, I'll say another thing just briefly on that I think is important for, you know, one of the reasons Boulder has fared so well relatively, downtown Boulder has fared compared to many other markets. You know, Boulder's not a big city, right? So when you have corporate chains and they're looking at downsizing, they're looking at which stores to close, right? Our local retailers here, when they need to downsize, they don't stock the top shelf and some of their staff loses hours, but they're not deciding which stores to close. So I see a lot of markets that are smaller markets that the nationals are just pulling out. But we're invested here. We have a lot of local investment that's not going to go away. So it's I think we're in a good place still in that regard.
Oh, thank you.
Great, thank you. And we have 3 or 4 more questions. Your time is still good, Chip? You good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Wonderful. Okay, Marty, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Chip, and thanks for being here. One of our longtime Rotary members, Virginia Patterson, was super involved with downtown Boulder, and I think there's an area, Gingy Way, that's named after her.
Yes.
So we certainly acknowledge and honor her and appreciate all that she's done. My question has to do with another kind of chip. It's my understanding that the CU Marching Band is looking forward to getting those first chords in the Stampede before the first game in September. Is that still the plan as far as you know?
That is still the plan. We're so excited for the Stampede to return. And unless anything changes, that is the plan. And so you know, I am officially the other Chip. Chip will be here for the Stampede, and I am the other Chip. So yeah, but we're looking forward to that.
Very good, excellent. Someone that you know, Laurie, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, we're really fortunate to have you, Chip, in this role. I mean, it's been pretty special to get to know you, and I'm fortunate enough to also serve on the board of Downtown Boulder Partnership. So it's been a great way to get to know downtown. But I think one of the greatest compliments was walking down there just a few days ago with friends from out of town and introducing them, and they had no idea that there was such a thing as a CEO of a downtown entity. And so it was a pleasure to ask him, hey, is this work or play today as you're out? And he said, my work is this play. So it was really good to hear that. But my question, I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in one of our recent board meetings, you had some big number comparison, which I thought was really cool to hear as a Boulderite, you know, comparing last year to this year. I want to say it was like 100 to 1 million. Wanted to have you confirm that. And then I also just want to ask how we as people in Boulder and visitors to Boulder can help downtown Boulder, especially with the whole membership piece. So why don't you just speak to that? Sure.
I'm looking for the numbers really quick because I think I have them. Yeah, I'm not finding, but I think we were like at 2 million visitors year to date so far downtown, and we're up there. We've just had a stellar year in terms of the numbers of people. It is really fun to compare 2021 to 2020. But really we're doing a lot of comps with 2019, and we're up from 2019, but significantly. Yeah, I think it's a great question in terms of how the community can engage and participate in this. I think, you know, first and foremost, come downtown. Just come downtown and enjoy it and be here, support the businesses. And, you know, you support the businesses even when you're not spending money downtown. When we say support the businesses, certainly, you know, shopping in the businesses and supporting the local businesses is great. But just the vibrancy of enjoying downtown and spending time downtown is huge. I think as we are, I mentioned the infrastructure projects we're talking about. And I'm excited for the opportunity of what is coming up with, you know, the next chapter of the Pearl Street Mall. It's been the gold standard. You know, I'm not shy. I'm honest about, you know, the time I was running downtown Santa Cruz, a lot of what I was doing was watching Boulder and stealing ideas, you know, and I think that's true of most downtown management organizations around the country is watching Boulder. It's just a really great downtown. It's designed well, it's managed well, and it's got a great community here. So, you know, what's next is exciting to think about. So as you see the infrastructure tax coming on and the support for downtown, that'll be big. It's, you know, there's some big projects that we need to look at now. I think that the restrooms downtown are more and more of an issue. The way we use public space is really changing, and the safety around that and engagement is around that. So I just invite people to stay engaged with all of that and stay engaged with downtown. And but I think the most important thing is come down to Bands on the Bricks and dance, because it's fun, right?
Great,
Did I answer all your questions, Laurie? You had.
Okay, and Chip, I'm just going to give you some advice. I mean, as CEO, if I was you, I would say that the turnaround from 2020 to now is all because of you and all the hard work. I mean, that's what I would do if I was CEO, but that's why I'm not CEO. I'm just a moderator.
My staff tries to say that the pandemic was my fault because none of that happened before I got here.
Well, you know what I would say to that staff? I'd say you're fired.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm just trying to give you some advice here. Now, we have another question here about employment. Jim Rolfe, I'm going to have you unmute and ask your question. Jim Radowski will listen to the question and the answer, and yours might be very similar. So, Jim Rolfe, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, good afternoon, Chip. I had a question for you. It seems like downtown, I see a lot of help wanted signs. Are employers having a hard time hiring new employees? And if that is true, how's that affecting their ability to reopen?
Terrible time. It's been really challenging. That's one of the biggest challenges we're hearing. We did, a little over a month ago, we did a job walk, kind of our own job fair. We worked with Workforce Boulder and a lot of the schools, and he posted ads everywhere and just said, come downtown, we're doing a job walk. We set up our visitor information center as kind of a resource to, you know, help people connect with it and just reach out to the businesses, and everyone's looking to hire, particularly service industry. And I think there's a number of reasons that we can, you know, talk all day about why that is. We did have some good success for that. We had, you know, Allbirds just opened here. They hired 6 people on the spot that day. You know, the St. Julian hired a bunch of people that day. But it's hard. It's really hard to get staffing. You know, I have to say, when we launched this ambassador program for a July 1 start, that was my biggest concern was, you know, hiring, because that program only works if you hire the right people. And hiring is really hard right now. We got lucky, or, you know, I mean, we pay well, but we got great people. But we're hearing that a lot. I mean, there's you know, and this is happening everywhere I talk to other cities. You know, the visitor bureau up in Crested Butte is just stopping advertising because people are coming there and the restaurants can't open because they don't have staff. So, and that's happening in a lot of places. You know, will that change? Hopefully as the fall gets here, I think people start to settle and need work again. But I think it's also really forcing a lot, in particularly the restaurants, to really think about labor practices and you know, how they hire and really focus in a little more. So I think we'll see a lot of changes. I think for the restaurant industry in particular is really hit hard, and it's just going to make everything more expensive. So, but yeah, people are having a really rough time.
And Jim Radowski, do you have anything to contribute? I think your question was a little different about where they've all gone. Is that right?
Yeah, You partially answered my question. Thank you so much, Chip, for speaking to our club today. But what do your members say when they talk about the employees that have apparently just disappeared? Where have they gone? Are they sitting at home playing video games, or are they off on a Himalaya trek? Where are they all?
I think that's a complicated answer. I can offer a few thoughts. Pre-pandemic, we had 60,000 in commuters to Boulder. 60,000 people lived outside of Boulder and worked in Boulder. When people started working at home, once they started going out again, I think a lot of people discovered their neighborhoods. A lot of people got jobs driving in the last year. And you can have a little more flexible schedule. But I think a lot of people moved away. A lot of people can't afford to live in Boulder or move back with family because of COVID. It's a mix of a lot of things. And people are still getting unemployment. So the lower wage jobs in particular, there is a little bit of a disincentive for some people to come back to work. I think that's all going to come to a head because honestly, if businesses haven't figured out how to make it without those employees now, they're not here. So I don't think there's going to be a wave of a lot of people getting hired again when unemployment runs out. So it'll be curious to see what happens. But I think it's a combination of things, Jim. I think people, this is happening in cities all over the country. There's a workforce challenge, but I think in particular Boulder, there's not a lot of people who live here who work those jobs because the cost of living in Boulder. A lot of our workforce lives in, as far as, Denver and, other places. So when people are coming back to work because workers are so in demand, you can get a job closer to home.
All right.
Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Chip. That's all the time that we have, but I know our good friend and member, Susan Conway, has something she'd like to say to you.
Chip, we are so grateful for what you are doing for downtown and how that reverberates for the entire Boulder community. And we want to thank you for being with us today and sharing the news of what's been happening and what lies ahead. You may be aware that Rotary has been a global leader in the work to eradicate polio, and we are this close to meeting that goal. In your honor and in thanks for your being here today, we will be donating 100 doses of polio vaccine to that effort. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to come back anytime. I'm kind of wanting to come back and hear Laurie's presentation, so I might crash.
Please do.
Yeah. And Nancy, yes, Brasseria and the Med are coming back. Via Pearl has been replaced by a fantastic Mexican restaurant, my neighbor Felix. But watch for Brasseria and the Med in a new updated version. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Chip. And we certainly do extend an invitation for you to come to the club whenever you want. So you can actually hear somebody else speak and not yourself. This was fantastic. I really am grateful personally for hearing what's been going on in the community. Part of what we do at Rotary, it's not just international interconnectivity, it's also at the local level. And to hear stories about you and Laurie working together from day one, and the fact that there's synchronicity and when you started in your positions, I mean, it seems natural to me that maybe the next step could be membership with Boulder Rotary. So not to put any pressure on you or anything. I see a lot of thumbs up, so I think you would have some signers for the application.